Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Daily Wolves. I'm your host, Will, and I'm joined by my lovely teammate here at the Daily Wolves team, Nathan. Nathan, hello, how are we?
Hello, Will. Hello, everyone. Hope we're doing well. I'm full of positivity. I've just listened to your podcast with Chris about the fixture against Brighton from last weekend, and I'm feeling the positive energy. So I'm looking forward to this episode.
Is the tide turning? Who knows? We shall see.
That is the question on everyone's lips.
Well, we all certainly hope that it is, at least. But yeah, Nathan, so we were on about, just before we started recording, we were on about, there's been a big event in the world of football go on. Was it last night? Was it the night before us recording? Either way, it was this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've confused what day we're on. Anyway, it was the Ballon d'Or ceremony.
It was indeed.
In which no members from Wolves travelled to Paris.
You know what?
Evening.
I was really surprised. I was really surprised. I was, given some of the nominees, I was thinking that potentially maybe a Hwang or a Sarabia could have snuck just in there, but they've obviously not been listening to Daily Wolves much, have they? Because it's reporters that vote for it, and we're essentially reporting on the world of football. So our votes should be casted, really, shouldn't they?
I know who I'd be voting for, and that leads me perfectly on to my next question, which if there was a Wolves Ballon d'Or right now, who would be your winner?
Oh, it's a tough question. I was going to say I'm going to base it on form, but form hasn't been great for anyone really recently. I don't know. I think I'd probably go Cunha because I think I've got a bit of an emotional attachment to him, but also he is our standout player, and I think when we line up against any team, the opposition are thinking that he's sort of our main guy.
Yeah,
he's the one that if you manage to stop him, you manage to stop a fair bit of what we do going forwards. And I do like Cunha, and he loves the badge. So just for that as well, he deserves it, in my opinion. Who would you go for?
I would agree. Not only because I've met him, so I've got a bit of emotional bias that way. And he's lovely, absolutely lovely. I think it's a story I've said on this podcast before. But also, that passion that you mentioned there, as well as the fact that he's our number 10 and the main man and the quality. Yeah. But I don't know if you saw, he was at Agba Stadium, Kidderminster Stadium, the other night watching our under-21s play.
I didn't actually see that.
Yeah, I think it was some random. I think it was like we played PSVs under-21s or something random like that. I'm not sure what the context of the game was. All I know is that he was there, loving it. Posted on his Instagram story that he was there. And Pedro Lima was starting as well.
I did see that,
which is interesting. Yeah.
That's good to see. There seems to be a really good atmosphere around those guys, and I know obviously Wolves marketing and media team, they've milked it as much as they can, but they do genuinely seem like they all get on and they are all mates. And I suppose that can only go, hopefully at some point positively for us as sort of team cohesion and stuff,
Yeah, well, it's it links into what Chris and I spoke about in terms of the sort of they're all fighting for one another. The togetherness is there, which we haven't necessarily seen any evidence of on the pitch of late. So you'd like to think it would translate. But just going back quickly to the Ballon d'Or ceremony, I mentioned that Cunha posted on his Instagram story that he was at the under-21s game, but someone else was posting on their Instagram story, weren't they, about the Ballon d'Or ceremony? I'll let you do the honors. Take it away.
Our captain Mario Lemina wasn't too pleased with the fact that Rodri got the Ballon d'Or. I don't actually have the quote, so I'm not going to quote exactly what he put on,
Mm-hmm.
but it was along the lines of Rodri is the best midfielder in the world, but Vinicius Junior should have won the Ballon d'Or, basically.
Yeah, it was something
Um,
like
and
Vinicius is the best footballer
yeah, something like
all
that.
round. Yeah.
And I've been having this debate with a few mates over the past few days, and I'm I don't think I agree with Mario Lemina at all. I think that Rodri winning the Ballon d'Or, to me, in my eyes, is the correct decision from like a footballing perspective. I think that it is a reflection of the current sort of football landscape around the world, where we haven't got that outstanding level of Messi and Ronaldo anymore. Um,
Yeah.
whereby the players like Vinicius are probably at the level of the players that were finishing third, fourth, fifth in the Ballon d'Or when Messi and Ronaldo were around. And
Yeah.
furthermore, Vinicius, like, I think obviously he's a world class player and he's really exciting to watch. But I think Rodri deserves it through what they've won, and his influence on games is arguably bigger than Vinicius. So
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of
No,
agree with it.
I echo exactly what you say. I mean, I think it goes without saying. If it was up to me, would I have some flashy winger who hasn't even scored, more goals than Jean-Philippe Mateta, who we're going to be hosting at the Molyneux? He's not even scored more goals than him, or at least in the same ballpark. Would
Yeah,
I have him or, the best holding defensive midfielder in world football winning the award for being the best at what they do? Because that's what it is.
yeah, yeah,
And it's I don't think it's up for debate. I think it's actually really embarrassing, the outrage around it. The whole
yeah.
thing of Real Madrid not traveling, and you know um, Vinicius saying, what was it he said? He came out and posted something on Twitter
Was it
saying
something
something
to do
like,
with like the ethnic background or something like that? I think I saw
no,
something.
that was from a Spanish or Brazilian
Reporter.
newspaper. Yeah,
Okay.
but
Yes. Yeah.
Vinicius said, that do it. He'll do 10 times what he's done last year to prove everyone wrong. And I'm thinking, well, 10 times that is still only, sort of
You're
not
still not
even,
lacing Messi or Ronaldo's boots.
yeah, like, I think, I don't know. I just don't, I don't like him now. I know a few people
Yeah.
didn't, but I was always indifferent. I thought he was a decent little player. I kind of like a bit of a wind-up merchant, but
Hmm.
there's one thing like being a bit controversial, and there's another thing just being a crybaby. And
Yeah.
when you've got the likes of Haaland and Mbappe, I know Mbappe has not been performing at the same levels as he was at, but when you've got those players breathing down your neck um, for individual accolades, which realistically shouldn't matter that much. I know it's easy for me to say I'm not winning it anytime soon, but do you know what I mean? Like, I just
Yeah.
find it all a bit, I don't know,
It's
just
it's a
embarrassing.
bit much. It is a bit embarrassing, and some of it's like, I don't want to throw around big words, but some of it just seems a bit immature. Like
Yeah,
the whole thing
yeah,
of,
yeah, yeah.
Messi and Ronaldo were competing at such a level for so long
Mm.
that you knew it was going to be one of the two, but they both turned up
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to
Yeah,
the
to
award
not turn up.
ceremony.
Yeah.
And of course, when one of them won, the other one weren't too happy. Like, if the camera panned round to Ronaldo's face when Messi won, he wasn't exactly, smiling and super happy to see that. Like, obviously not. But
Mm.
that's just part of being a professional footballer who's a world class player. I mean, yeah, it is
Yeah,
what it
and
is.
I do just want to highlight as well the fact that Jude Bellingham, who grew up down the road from me, came third, and because of the outrage and backlash, he wasn't even allowed by his club to attend the event, which he's come third for, which is for a kid from Stourbridge is unbelievable. And I'd like to mention a couple of the other English guys as well. I think Kane was in the top 10,
Yeah,
who I think I'm going off on one here, but I just think he's still so underrated and underappreciated by a lot of people.
yeah,
And he's annoying to play against. I used to hate um, his little antics
Yeah, the little push in the
when we're
back
playing.
when there's a long ball up
Yeah,
top. Yeah,
yeah. But I still think he's unbelievable,
yeah.
and
You can't
it's not
argue
recognised.
with his numbers, can you? Like, I
No,
think people say, "Oh, penalty merchant this or whatever," and he's slow, and you can say all you like, but at the end of the day, he performs season in, season out,
yeah, and
scores goals regardless of who he plays for,
mm,
and that's should say enough. And then if you actually watch the games, his ability to drop deep and get involved, and then to it's
still
just
score.
overall reading of the game and still
Yeah,
score. Yeah, it's fantastic.
yeah, and another person who I'd like to mention, who I still to this day insist gave me the happiest moment of my life, is Cole Palmer, who came something like 24th or something ridiculous when he had more goals and assists than Vinicius. And as far as I'm concerned, obviously I've seen more of Palmer than I have Vinicius, but it's not like he's just stat padding on the
No,
ball to watch. He's just an absolute joy to watch.
yeah, I think there
You
was
know,
there was
without the goals and assists. So
I, yeah, I completely agree. What I was going to say on that is that Cole Palmer finishing where he did, and then I think they had Ademola Lookman, who I quite like watching
yeah,
as a player, in 14th or
yeah,
something. And it's
yeah,
like I don't know who's watching or who's voting for this, but it just seems so far from reality.
yeah. And I just want to mention on that Luckman, he was in the Fulham team with Lamina that got relegated. So that team had a guy who in the top 20 of the Ballon d'Or, and a guy who's our captain who played in a Champions League final,
Yeah,
and they got relegated. But anyway, that's enough on that, because at the end of the day, Rodri was the clear winner. And speaking of clear winners, here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencaster came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencaster. Um, and speaking of learning more about things, there is one or two Wolves related news. I'll narrow us down in the world of football now. I'll zoom in back on the Black Country, and the first thing I want to pick up on is Hugo Bueno out on loan,
yeah,
as we know, in Feyenoord, and the manager has labelled him as an important weapon, highlighting that he's always a threat to the opponent in their half, and he picked up his third league assist at the weekend
yeah.
in a 2-0 victory, and it just boggles my mind the fact that he's out on loan and
I
not
know,
playing with us. I feel like it's something
I
that
know,
everyone seems to have gone quiet about now, but one slight knock to Eight Nuri,
and we're in trouble.
and yeah,
Yeah,
and that could cost us massively, because Rayan is massive for
yeah,
us, in terms of his importance to the team. But yeah, I just
yeah.
wanted to know your thoughts on him. Really, I mean, it's
I
something that Chris and I spoke about during the transfer window.
yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah, I really like him. I really, really like Hugo Bueno. I think he's got the potential to be a perfect all round fullback. I
yeah,
think he really does have. He has the physical attributes. He's technically very sound, and seems from watching games that he fits a structure of a back four really, really well. Like
yeah.
his positioning seems to be always pretty good.
Hmm.
Compare that to, I mean, I think Eight Nori is a step above, which is obviously why we've kept him as the starting fullback.
Yeah,
But Eight Nori has these moments where he's not concentrating. Sort of Chelsea at home comes to mind, where he
yeah,
goes missing
yeah,
for sort of 10 minutes out of that structure, and there's other moments where he decides to take players on where maybe he shouldn't. And I know sometimes it does come off because of how technical he is, but that stuff with Hugo Bueno didn't happen as much. He's a little bit more sort of, few step
reliable.
overs, reliable. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly that. That
yeah,
was the word I was looking for. Few step overs down the line, cross it in, that sort of stuff, and you kind of know what you're getting. And you almost think that
Yeah.
his style of fullback play might suit. I know Ain't Norway's play had a good season, but at moments this season, it might have actually suited our style of play where we've got such a big centre forward. Um, and
Yeah.
Hugo Bueno is the type of fullback who loves just getting to the byline and putting that cross in,
Yeah.
similar to
Yeah.
Semedo on the opposite side. And we've already seen how a couple of goals have come from Semedo's side. And I know Ain't Norway's contributed by actually scoring, but we maybe don't see him get to the byline and cross as many balls in as Bueno does. So it's just, yeah, as you say, I can understand from his perspective that I'm sure he was frustrated by his lack of minutes, and that's why he's gone out on loan. So I think it's good for his development, but I just hope that it's not with the idea of them selling him on, because I do think that he would provide
Yeah.
some
No.
really good
Mm.
depth.
Yeah, I think it would be a massive loss if we were to do that. And there's a few things that you mentioned there which I want to pick up on. I'll start off with the fact that Chris and I spoke about yesterday how it's weird how O'Neill seems to have these players who he just dislikes for some
Yeah,
reason, or at least that's how it looks from the outside. And Bueno appeared to be one of them. I remember I spoke with Chris about this. Would have been months ago now when he actually went out on loan, and there was a game last season where I remember watching him warming up, and then Doherty came on at left back instead, like for no apparent reason. Um, and I remember him going to the dugouts, throwing his like top down, really, really annoyed, and understandably so.
yeah,
Um, because you think of that when he did get an appearance, I remember him. He scored in the Coventry game, which obviously we went
yeah,
on to lose, but he scored um, the crucial goal for us in that match. And I just think of things like that, and if he feels underappreciated, which is how it looked, then I don't blame him for a second for seeking game time. And also, I just wanted to say that I don't know if you know this, but he's got a twin brother who plays for Dortmund, or at least did play for Dortmund. I don't think he was first team.
I
Um,
didn't know that.
yeah, well, the reason I know it is because I was at the one of the games last season, season before. I think it might have been last season, and honestly, it could have been him if he wasn't wearing like he had a little Dortmund coat on, and also I knew it wasn't Hugo Bueno because I just seen him down, in the dugouts. But it was honestly the spitting image, absolute spitting image. Um, but the other thing I want us to talk about, Nathan, is the fact that Gary O'Neill has been given a warning by the FA, has escaped a charge, and this is following his comments about referees and subconscious bias after the Man
Yeah,
City game. I
yeah,
just want to know, yeah, what are your
I
thoughts on
saw
that?
that. I think Gary O'Neill is getting he gets a lot of stick from the FA, doesn't he? He gets a lot of stick from the Prem with regards to what he says out in press conferences. I think a lot of the time I actually tend to agree with his approach in post-match press conferences. I think there's a few recently where he's maybe been a little more fiery, and after the City game where he's kind of making that comparison to if you want to upset the big guy or the small guy in the street, and he's going to obviously want to upset the little guy sort of thing, and saying that Wolves would be the little guy in that story. Um, but some of it, he does have a point. I think we've seen it. We saw a graph come out recently from Sky Sports where
Yeah,
the different teams that have been on the back end of poor VAR decisions or VAR decisions that have cost teams points, and I think Wolves have lost like 20 points from it over the
yeah.
past few
No,
seasons, and I
it's
think that's you know whether all of those were incorrect VAR decisions, I'm not 100% sure, but it does say quite a lot that I think the next team was at like -7 or -8 or something, not even
mm,
half of the amount of points that they lost compared to
hmm
Wolves. Now, I don't think that there's some sort of agenda against us at all, but I think the thing that's just frustrating is that consistency, and O'Neill is always bringing that up, and we bring it up as fans as well. We just want to see, we want to be able to have an idea of when something happens on the pitch, there's sort of a precedent and as fans watching it on the TV who see exactly what the VAR officials see, is we can kind of figure out what's going to happen because we know that this is what the standard has been set. And that's
Mm.
why when that City goal was given, and we're not going to go back into detail about it, it's why we're all expecting it to be chalked off, is because we'd seen exactly the same thing happen the season before and it be chalked off against us.
Yeah.
So
No, 100%.
yeah, I'm sort of elaborating a little bit here, but I think Gary O'Neill is. I don't think that's the worst thing he said about VAR, and I think it's probably the right thing that he's not been charged at all. Because
Yeah, no, I would agree. And just before I give you more thoughts on that, I'd like to give out a quick reminder that this podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football, and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network, every club, every day. But yeah, just on that, I mean, you spoke about the sort of the comments that O'Neill has a tendency to come out with, and a lot of the time I agree with them when it's to do with the sort of there's no denying that Wolves have been hard done by VAR decisions and so on and so forth, and I like the fact that he speaks out about that and doesn't just
do the new
completely sort of bypass it. But I was having this conversation with somebody at work, and for context, they are a Villa fan.
Okay.
But I mean, my opinion on O'Neill has changed massively this season. Anyway, so I do get where they're coming from, because this was it was referenced the City goal and O'Neill's comments, and they said the words to me. They said that O'Neill's just a man full of excuses, and I don't know. Part of me struggled to disagree in a way purely because of the sort of comments that we started to see. That again, I like that approach and that attitude, but then it's twisted from it's not always about VAR and so on and so forth now, but it's actually about the players and the club because the results haven't been going his way. There's always there's always something saying hindsight to shift the blame from off him, and it's doing my head in to be honest with you.
No, I completely agree. I think one thing that has been I don't know if he's playing on it consciously or not, and your Villa fan mate might have a point here, is that the media is getting behind the idea that we've been unlucky. Wolves, it always seems to come up. Wolves unlucky with the fixtures, unlucky with VAR, and it's just like how long are we unlucky, or how long are we just not very good?
Yeah,
and I think O'Neill at times has been able to hide behind the sort of VAR decisions and behind the poor run of fixtures. And to be fair, it's not just O'Neill; it's also the players that can hide behind that. So at times, I really don't mind. All the greatest managers ever always come out with the weirdest excuses at times. I think Klopp once came out as saying like the grass was too long or something, and what the pitch was wet, or you hear all sorts of stuff that they come out with, but it's essentially just to divert attention from their players' poor performance or protecting the players, which is exactly what a manager should be doing. So I don't know if O'Neill's doing it for that reason, but I think that for a little bit of time, it's nice to have that protection, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, but my only concern is that it's no longer protecting the players as it is protecting himself and his decisions. Anyway, moving forwards, this Saturday we'll be hosting Crystal Palace at home. And we spoke earlier about Hugo Bueno, and we mentioned Aït-Nouri. And on the day of our recording today, in 2020, so 4 years ago, we hosted Crystal Palace at home, and Ryan Aït-Scorvey scored on his Wolves debut in a 2-0 win over Palace. I remember watching it. I remember it being a lovely goal as well.
Was that the volley?
It is a little half volley back across
Yeah,
goal into the
yeah,
far
yeah, yeah.
corner. It just fell for him. It's one of those. It was just bouncing up for him as he was running to the edge of the box, and he just connected with it beautifully. And
Yeah,
it was just a good finish,
yeah,
and it was it was a sign of things to come. I think.
yeah. He's
But
got that
yeah,
in his locker though, hasn't he? He's got. You can tell how talented he is by
mm,
watching, any of his games. You can tell he's got something, and it's just
yeah,
about producing that consistently. That's going to be the difference between him being, he could go on to a very big European club, right? In my opinion, he's still young. He's got
mm.
bags of potential. It's just the consistency, isn't it? But he has produced some really good moments for us, hasn't he? I'm thinking also about. I don't know. There's another volley that's straight from a corner, and I
Was it?
don't know
I
who he's.
think it was. Was it pre-season? I think
Uh,
it might have been a pre-season game or a cup game.
Something like that, and he
Or
hits
yeah, I
this
know.
ball on the
Yeah,
volley.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I don't know how his hamstring stayed intact because his foot must be way above his head, and he's hit it on the volley.
Yeah,
It's gone way back across from where the
it
ball's
just
come from.
floated across perfectly because
Exactly. Yeah.
it wasn't a hard volley or anything. It was like controlled almost. I know
Yeah.
exactly which goal you're on about.
Yeah.
I need to remember who that was against. But yeah, just looking at the game then, I just want to know. We spoke, after the Brighton fixture, and you mentioned at the start of this podcast that there's a bit more positivity ahead of Saturday's fixture.
Yeah.
So yeah, what things particularly are making you feel positive as opposed to the usual sort of
Yeah. The usual doom and gloom.
yeah
I think the main positive is like that. The sort of buzzwords around the grit, the mentality, the fighting back, unity, all of those words. Like I think that's what brings the positivity in my mind. And you're playing Crystal Palace, who on paper are not that much better than us at all. We shouldn't be afraid of them in the slightest. But I do really hope that we don't go into it naive as to thinking that that point against Brighton was fully
mm,
deserved. We should have come out with more. It's not one of those games. It's we fought well to the end and got a draw, which absolutely is vital and could be a turning point in our season. But let's not go into this Palace game and think to ourselves that we've got 8 really good performances behind us and there's nothing to work on, sort of thing. And they've just come
yeah
off the back of a really good victory at home to Spurs 1-0. And that goal, I don't know if you've seen it, it's absolutely filthy. The
yeah I have
assist
seen it.
from
I have
Eze
seen it.
is just something else.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
if they've got Eze and Mateta that are both in scoring and sort of on form, then we shouldn't be going into this game thinking we're just gonna have an easy time
No, not at
defending
all.
our own goal. So let's,
Mm.
yeah, positive because we've got a point or an extra point on the board from previous weekend, but also just cautious. Those are
Yeah,
those are
I
my
think I
thoughts.
think cautious sums it up perfectly, especially looking at O'Neill sort of hinting at going back to a back four. If you couple that with the fact that we saw Sam Johnston in full training, and Wolves had an open training session, and he was fully
Yeah,
involved, and O'Neill hinted at him being his number one still. So it just seems to me, I'm really worried that we're going to rock up to a team who have just beat a European side when we haven't won a game still this year. We're going to rock up with a back four that's been proven to not work. Um, if he rocks up with a back four and Bueno isn't in it, I want him out just for that alone. Um, but if that's the case and we've got Johnson in goal, and I can just see just from his little comments that we spoke about in these press conferences, there's still just little hints of stubbornness, I suppose.
yeah,
And it's really, really worried me and really sort of killed a bit of the optimism and hope and excitement that I had. But having said that, was still, I hope I'm wrong with everything I just said, and you know, um, we can come out of
yeah.
Saturday evening with 3 points and
Hopefully so.
because this game is massive,
It's
absolutely massive.
I genuinely see this game. I mean, if you, over the last couple of weeks, looked a lot at the fixture list and previous and fixtures going forwards. This really is the start of O'Neill's, if we want to call it redemption or downfall or whatever's going on. This game is really the big one.
Yeah, am I right? Am I right in saying that if we lose, he goes?
Oof. Yeah. In my mind, yes, because I think we've seen enough opportunities for him to change things and make sensible decisions that maybe haven't come. If I'm thinking, what will the club do? I think they keep him. I think they keep him in. I think they're gonna let him ride out the next five fixtures, because he's got 3 home games, and I think in their mind they're thinking, out of these next 5 games, if he can get 10 points, then maybe he stays. So I think they're probably looking at it in a bit of a bigger picture.
I just think my worry is that, I mean, Palace sit 17th, just outside the relegation zone. If we lose to them, we're 7 points adrift from safety. You just can't dress it up.
No.
But yeah, with that being said, Nathan, just to conclude today's episode, I'm going to ask for your score predictions ahead of the game.
1-0 to the old cold.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to agree with you on that. That's what I want to see, at least. That'll do.
Yeah.
That'll do. And I want it to come from a Strand Larsen header from just a cross into the box.
Yeah.
You know,
or a deflected own goal, or just to be honest, a nice 1-0 would what would feel like maybe an away performance, but if we keep a clean sheet, I'd be over the moon.
Yeah, no, I agree. But yeah, on that note, I'd like to first of all thank you, Nathan, for recording with us today. And yeah, thank everybody for listening, and hopefully, fingers crossed, this time next week we've got 5 points on the board in the Premier League.
Fingers crossed.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.